Welcome back to the lab, guys. Today I've got a really good video. I'm going to be going over and discussing all 7 layers of the OSI model. And you're probably like, OSI, another acronym? What? Yeah, another acronym, but this one's actually a really awesome acronym. OSI stands for Open Systems Interconnection Model. So stick around, guys. We're going to be going over that here probably for about the next 17 to 25 minutes. Intro roll. Welcome back, guys, after that cheesy introduction there by myself. So, as I was saying in the introduction, today we're going to be going over Open Systems Interconnection Model. All right. And just to give you an idea, the reason I want to go over this is because going forward, I'm going to be doing a lot more advanced videos. I'm going to be doing a lot of things such as, VDI. I'm going to be doing things with iSCSI, which I kind of already have. I plan on doing more things with setting up Windows servers, DHCP, DNS, understanding of how to do replication over WAN. There's just a lot of different things I want to do, and it requires knowledge of the OSI model. It requires your understanding of how the layers progress, not just progress, but logically progress. So that way each part that is happening, or I should say each bit, pun intended, each bit actually goes across and is transmitted in between you and somebody else. I mean, I guess the best thing I can put towards here is, talk about Xbox Live or sending emails, and that's what we're going to be doing. Is today we're going to be talking about the different layers that happen whenever you try to send an email or the first time your Xbox boots up and tries to connect to Xbox Live. So what I'm going to be doing is there'll be a slide up, and I'm just going to kind of break down real quick. There's just going to pop up. It'll say what layer we're on, because I'm probably going to spend a few minutes on each layer. Will not surprise me if we end up getting up into the 20 to 30 minute video mark here. So just stick with me, guys. And if you want to skip around, like I said, I'm going to put a mark up there to let you guys know exactly which layer I'm talking about. So that way, then if you need to, you can skip through and be able to rewind or watch or know exactly where I'm at in the story. In the tutorial. Thanks, guys. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into the physical layer. All right, physical layer. This is physical layer. Ethernet cord, access points, hub, token rings, repeaters. Those are all physical layer, and these, it can be any type of physical medium, just as like I was holding. It can be an electric voltage, it can be radio frequency, pulse of infrared. Ordinary light, you name it, that's the part of physical layer. And what the physical layer does is it's actually how the data usually travels from a switch point. So anytime, your computer just doesn't send data. It's got to have a connection point. So everybody has a Ethernet cord plugged in, and this usually is plugged in for most people, I would say probably into their firewall, like a router. As I've talked before, I'll link up below, up, down, somewhere around here. There'll be a link to my networking video, the intro to basics of networking. And I talk in there about how AT&T and different ISPs give you modems, and that's all they give you. Usually has 4 ports in the back of it. It would not surprise me if most of you guys are plugged into that. Some of you guys that are home lavers and home server gurus and have their own Plex servers and run ESXi and Proxmox and Zen and all that stuff in their house, you guys probably have switches, which I know you do. Whichever, you guys are probably plugged into a switch, but you either using this, all right, or using a wireless access point. You're using wireless, which is radio frequencies. So that's usually your physical layer right there, all right? And if you look over here on Gliffy, I've got kind of a setup over here. What most people have from their ISP is a router like this, probably with 4 ports. You probably got your WAN, and then you got, your 4 ports, maybe 3, whatever. And then you have an Ethernet cord that runs over to your, your nice Macintosh, where you sit there and you're on the YouTubes and you do the Reddits. But the point being is this right here is your physical layer. You're using this cord right here that I hold in my hand between those two to communicate. Either that, or you're using a wireless access point and you're using a radio frequency. That is your physical layer. And that's all your ones and zeros and your bits of data, and that's what it gets broken down to. At the physical layer, it's literally just a bunch of bits. It's a bunch of 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, yeah. Like Bender and Futurama, just a bunch of bits. After that, all those bits will then get handed off to the data link layer, which I'm going to go over next. All right, the data link layer, the most complex layer of this whole entire process. This is probably where the magic happens. All right, the data link layer is responsible going ahead and looking at all the bits and all these ones and zeros and everything that are coming over here and getting flung at it from physical layer. It goes in, it checks all that, and it puts it in a nice little neat frame so it can be presented up in the next layer. So what it does is it goes over to the physical layer and it says, give me all those ones and zeros, and then grabs it and it breaks it down and it says, okay, I got a destination address, here's the IP address I'm trying to hit, or possibly maybe a DNS name. Normally it's a destination address because that's already been resolved through DNS. After that, it usually has a source address, and that source address will tell it, hey, this is where I came from. After that, you'll usually have like kind of another header or, a few other things, and that could be like your VLAN tag or some other information. And then after that, you'll have a bunch of zeros and ones, and that normally is the actual data that's being sent over to the system and the application that gets broken down on the next layer. And at the final, you have the final header, which could be the ending and letting it know that it's closing, or there could be other information on there just to let it know where it came from, or maybe it's just some tag information to let it tag along as it's getting to a certain point in the system. Once all of that data is verified and checked at the data link layer, so once it goes and checks and says, hey, give me all your ones and zeros, and takes it all in and makes sure it has an actual packet. And I don't know if you guys have ever pinged, ping on a bad network, or you're on crappy Wi-Fi at the hotel or something, and you're trying to get something figured out. You start trying to ping things and you get about a 90% up rate. Normally that happens due to the system dropping packets because it can't, at the data link layer, it can't go ahead and build everything together. So that's where you get packet drop from, is when the data link layer can't build its frames properly. That's when the packet gets dropped because it can't hand everything over to the network layer to get it over to you. So that's what we're going to be going over next, guys, is the network layer. So now that our data has gone from our computer over here, passed through our physical medium here, and ended up at our router, now at our layer 2, getting put into a frame, and it's being all sent up, it's going to get sent up to the network layer. Now, one of the things is the network layer is going to look down at the frame and say, hey, where you going, man? The data layer is going to go, hey, I'm going here. Remember how earlier I was talking about that destination address? That's going to get handed over to the network layer. Network layer is going to be like, oh, you're going there? Well, where you're from, bud? And it's going to verify and try to make sure you're actually coming from a reliable source. Now, not all systems do this. Higher end, on the internet, we try to, but you guys know about spam and phishing and all that stuff. Hopefully you do. Do not look it up. Phishing attacks and spam is becoming bad. But point being is what happens at the network level, what it does is it takes that destination address, whatever it may be, say you're trying to go out to Xbox Live, and it tries to route its way there. So at the network layer, what it does is it goes out and hits a router, normally your default gateway. As I said before, refer to my basics of networking if you're not understanding some of the stuff, and I can kind of go over certain things. But what happens is it'll go up and hit your router, and your router will say, hey, yeah, I know where to go, and that's normally your default gateway. Your default gateway usually will go off and it'll send it off to your ISP's default gateway. So from here, hold on, guys, this is where it's going to get kind of cool. So here we go. We got your computer. All right. There's your router. All right. We're going to go over here. There's your ISP. So from here over to there. So what's going to happen then is right here, we're going to send it up, and your network layer is going to go, okay, I need to route it out over here to Xbox Live, and it's going to go and hit into the internet. We're going to say your ISP. And from there, then it's going to go ahead and let me grab a server. And it's going to go then, all still in the network layer. This is all still in the network layer. It's actually going to go ahead and try to hit over to Xbox Live or your email server, so whatever that could be. And the reason this does this is that's what the network layer does, is it looks at your destination address and it will keep sending that packet based off its destination address through its routes and through its routing processes until it reaches its destination. And that's what it does, is it will enter a router, look at the destination address, the router will say, oh, I know where that is, and we'll keep handing it until the packet sees that it's at its destination. And once it reaches there, it'll say, oh, I don't need to go any further. I'm at my destination address. And when that happens, then it closes off the loop and it hands itself over to the transport layer. The transport layer is pretty interesting on what it does, so get ready. All right, the transport layer, guys. Woo! Layer 4. We're more than halfway through. This is the last part of the lower layers, I guess you could say. So at first we had the physical, then we had the data, then we had the network, then now we have transport. The transport layer is the final layer before it goes up and actually starts getting in more with the upper layers with the user interaction and getting into applications and how it actually will then get to the end user. The transport layer is SPX records, UDP, TCP, and that basically is the different types of protocols that'll be used to transport the types of data. Remember how I was talking about earlier in that frame, you have all those ones and zeros, that data inside of, remember that ending header I said, and that other header, it can have different information, such as the transport rule of what port to use and what protocol to use for the different types of transports. And what will happen is then it gets presented to the next layer, which is called the session layer. So let's get into that. Layer 5, session layer. The session layer manages the sequence and flow of events that initiate and tear down network connections. At layer 5, it is built to support multiple types of connections that can be dynamically run over individual networks. So I don't know if you've ever gone in and look at your system and see all those different services running. That's the session layer. Each one of those is basically kind of a service or a session that's running, and that's what allows the system to run, is they are all dynamically spread across different ports and working as different things and different protocols, and the session layer is what allows that to happen. What the session layer does, though, is that it puts it in a form that can be understood to let it go up to the presentation layer, so that way the presentation layer can then take it and be able to present it to the end user. So let's move on to the next layer, layer 6. Layer 6, presentation layer. Presentation layer is probably one of the easiest and simplest functions of the OSI model. It handles the syntax processing of the message data, such as like the format conversions and encryption and decryption and needed support for the application layer above. It actually is what will handle how things are presented up above, and that could be like a GIF, an MPEG, a JPEG. That's the presentation layer. All right, and what the presentation layer does is once it gets all of that and it figures out how it's going to present it, it goes ahead and hands it off to the next layer, which is the application layer. All right, the application layer. All right, guys, the final layer of this whole process, layer 7. All right, layer 7, application layer, supplies the network services to end user applications. Network services are typically protocols that work for users' data. That's like HTTP, FTP, SMTP. Basically, if you're going to go look up Facebook, you're going to go to Google, any of that, that's going to be your application layer. That's where it's going to be able to actually present it to you and be actually viewable to you. So, if you go and view, like I'm over here on Glyphy, this is the application layer. Alright guys, so that's about it for this video here. It was a not too bad one. I'm glad that I was able to finally cover the OSI model. I really wanted to make sure that we kind of cover the basics of OSI and what it does and how each layer interacts, and that way we went through logical steps of what happened and what they do, so that way when you guys go look at your own labs or your own home network, you guys maybe have a better understanding and maybe you can kind of make it bigger and make it better. So I hope this video was helpful. Go ahead and like and subscribe and give me a comment down below. If you didn't like it, let me know what I did wrong. Let me know if I explained something wrong. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the lab.